Chess friends, in this video we'll be covering a number of scenarios that you can look at to improve your game, 6 of them, and then stay to the end, because at the end I have 2 fascinating checkmate scenarios that you can use against players of various skill levels, and they're quite successful and very interesting either way. Let's get right to it. Here is a scenario for you. You have a setup like this, and you've had a pawn battle, and now you're trying to think, how can you possibly win the game? It's pretty even right now. It looks like you don't really have a lot of advantage. If you're in a hurry, you might think, well, I can move here and force a few moves and maybe take some things away and might end up ahead and maybe make some things happen. Actually, you're down a queen, aren't you? All right, so it's not as good as you think it is. So then you think, where can the king go? And so you think the king can go here. It can't go here because it's in check by this here. It can only go here, and that's it. So can you stop that? You can. If you go here, then it's checkmate, except that the opponent has to sacrifice their rook. You go here, and then the queen goes there, and it looks like you're toast because you've lost more pieces. Except if you move your rook there, it is indeed checkmate, because you've covered the square that it's in is in check, and this square is in check, and that's it, and it is game over. So as you look at scenarios, think about how you can put your opponent in check. Think about how that you can make the best possible moves as you move forward in your ELO and move forward into thinking, how can I think more like a grandmaster? How can I think more like an advanced player, or more advanced than I already am? So it's up to you to make the right move when you're faced with a situation or scenario. In this situation, you're playing the white pieces, and black has a lot more pawns and 1 extra piece than you, but you're in a pretty good situation and a position, and so you have to figure out the best move you could make. You think maybe if you made your move here, that might be your best move. You're not sure. You can't go here because then this queen would come up and take your piece. So the move that you should make, that put the king in check, is this move here, and that is the move that makes things work out best. Now, maybe you can't see how that would play out. So suppose you did make this move. You go ahead and move your pawn up, which puts the king in check. The king has very few places he can go. He can go here or here. So say the king goes right here. That's probably a place he would go, because if the king went here, then when you moved here and turned this into a queen, then it would be checkmate. So the king doesn't want to do that. So instead, the king is going to move down here. That gives him a little more life that he can do. So then when you move here and turn this into a queen, then the king only has 1 place he can go. He goes here. And then what you do is you can move either queen, but suppose you move this queen, and then the king has 1 place he can go, and you go and take the queen, and you're ahead. Now, if you look at it another way, if you had your queen here and he moved this, if you move here, that may be checkmate, because here is check, there's check, so if you move that queen there, it is checkmate. And of course, I took that queen away, didn't put it back. So that's one way to look at that, how that scenario would work out. So play the moves in your mind. You don't have to play every possible scenario. Play a few scenarios, play the game, and have fun while you're doing it and while you're advancing. In this scenario, you have some problems going on. You have this knight is in jeopardy by a pawn. This bishop is in jeopardy by a pawn. You're going to lose one or the other, or both if you're not careful. There aren't a lot of things you could do. You could take the knight. That doesn't really do much for you. If you go up here and take the knight, you're still going to lose this bishop. So that doesn't really help you any. So what can you do to maximize what's going to happen and limit your problems and your exposure and make things as good as possible? What can you do about that? Well, you see that you could take the queen. That's an option. So if you think of captures and threats and checks, if you repeat that to yourself and look at all the pieces, what can this piece take? It can take the knight. This can take the pawn. That's not really going to help you much. This could move down. That's not going to help you much. You could. There's just not a lot of things that you can see to do and save your pieces and come out ahead. So can you see it? Can you see what you need to do? Well, here's what you need to do. Take the queen. They're going to take back with their rook. At that point, you can take the knight, and then they take your bishop, and then you take their bishop. So you lost a bishop, yes. You traded queens, yes. But you didn't come out as bad up. You were able to trade one-on-one everything that you lost. So that's the way that particular thing works. And so when you set yourself a scenario like this, it's good to look at the scenario and study it and think, man, if I'm in this position, what am I going to do? Because you think, well, I'm just gonna go ahead and take the knight. Well, that doesn't work for you. You think other things that you could do. You could go and take the pawn. Well, that's not going to work either. So you think of what you're going to do, practice it over and over. Take the queen, they take back, take the knight, they take your bishop, and you take the bishop like that. And that is the advanced thinking you need to do so that you come out ahead. You don't just want to take a piece to take a piece. You take a piece where you can come out ahead and advance your situation, where you can be more in their territory, you can be more even, you can come up with a pawn extra or points extra some way, or put yourself in a better position for the next move. And that's what this is all about, in improving yourself and looking at the game, looking at the board so you can find better ways to play. As you train your eyes to look at various scenarios, you look at them and you imagine, what would it be like for me to be in this scenario, and what am I going to do? As I've been training my eyes to look at various scenarios and come up with the best moves possible after making a ton of mistakes, then it trains me that when I'm in a regular game, then I can look at where I'm at in that game and come up with the best move. So at this game here, it looks like, well, what am I going to do? How am I going to make it where I win? Because the king really doesn't have anywhere to go, but he's not in check. You might think, well, I could put my queen there, and then he would take with the rook, and maybe I could do something, I'm not sure. Or you think, well, this bishop is free. Well, I'll just go ahead and take that. Play conservatively. That's not going to win you the game. Or you think, maybe I could take this pawn, it's free, and then I could go and maybe do something, then I could take this and maybe do something over with this rook. Not sure, or something along that line. You think of different things if you're playing too fast and not taking your time to review every piece, to review every move. I don't mean run every scenario. Don't try to be your own personal stockfish. No. Look at a few options, though. Look at what you can do. What can you take? This queen can take that. What else can this rook could take this piece, but that's not going to help any, because you can just take this and it's not going to help anything at all. So that rook could take that. This could go here. That's not going to help anything. There's just not a lot of things. But as you go around the board, you realize that you can take the pawn with that rook, and then you can move this rook over, and you can, obviously it's going to be checkmate, so the queen has to sacrifice, and then it is indeed checkmate, and you win the game. But you win those games by looking for the scenarios and imagining what can you do to improve your position and make things better for you. And this is how that works out. Now, I've actually been in this scenario not too long ago, and I missed it. And so when I went back through the game, I realized, oh wow, I could have won the game by using this scenario, or a scenario similar to that. So be on the lookout for similar moves. Here's another scenario for you. Take a look at it, think about it, look at how much trouble you're in. You're black, you're playing the black pieces. Look at how much trouble you're in. You're playing the black pieces, and white is set up quite a bit better than you. I mean, yes, white's on the run, etc., but when you first look at it, you think, wow, I'm a goner. There's nothing I can do. 2 queens against 1, and on and on and on. You just think it's a hopeless game. There's really nothing to do. So instead, you look at what you can do. So you think, well, I could, what could I do in this case? I could I can't take that pawn. I can put him in check. So you think maybe I could put this in check and then maybe work that into something, but that's not going to work. He could go here and then here. So it's just not, it's not the same scenario. So you can't take this queen sacrifice, because then you'd really be in a bad way. So that doesn't work for you. So you look at what else you can do. You can't really do much. This doesn't get you anywhere. Actually, this does. You can put the king in check. Always look for checks, captures, and threats. Look at that. You put the king in check, and your knight is protected by the pawn. And now this queen can come here, and it can put the king in check again. So can the king go anywhere? He can't go here because it's protected by this bishop. This is protected the same way. He can't go here. It's protected by the knight. And he can't go there. So that is indeed checkmate. But when you first looked at the situation, you don't necessarily see the checkmate unless you're thinking in those terms. Always be looking to think in those terms. Look at how you can think about the situation in a way that is going to advance your position. Because in this scenario, your opponent wouldn't have to do much in order to get a really significant advantage over you. And it could be considered headed a bad way. But instead, you look how you can put the king in check, put it in check, and then how you can go here and put the king in checkmate, etc. So always be looking at every position you have and seeing how you can improve it, how you can make things better. Because when you take something, you want to take it for a reason. When you make a move, you want to take it because you're bettering yourself. When you trade pieces, you want to trade pieces because there is an advantage for you in trading that piece. Ideally, that's the way it should be. Here is another scenario for you to look at and analyze what you would do in this situation. It's probably a similar situation that you've been in time after time after you took a free pawn or something, and now you're stuck and you can't decide exactly what you need to do. Well, if you think about the general moves that you do, you put a pawn in the middle, to get it to anchored where you can control some of the center of the board. You want to be able to castle soon, and you want to have a reason for each piece, each move you do, and only move once during the opening. You have a lot of things that you do as a chess player that you think about as you move. Well, all those moves that you do are just the moves that are the same moves you do when you're an advanced player. You just do more of them, do them in the right order, and take advantage of situations as you can. So in this particular situation, you look at what can you do? Checks, captures, threats. So your knight is in danger. You have to move it out of the way. It's in danger here because this pawn can just go here and take your knight, and it's nothing. So you think about where you could move your knight. You could move it here. That wouldn't do anything. The king could take it. You could move it there, and it would be taken by the pawn. You could move it here. That would be fine. It wouldn't be in jeopardy anywhere. It would be fine. Or here, or some other place that it could go. Those are all moves that you could do, but they are not the best moves in this particular scenario. And so then you look at your queen. Where all could your queen go? Your queen could go here, which gives you an avenue to cause trouble for the king, except there's two pieces protecting that. I mean, the king is the third if you count it that way as well, so that's not really a good option. This knight can't do anything fun for you. This bishop really can't do much. It could threaten, not really. There's nothing that bishop could do worth losing your knight. So instead, you look at the queen and think, aha, if I go here, I put the king in check, and the king has to respond. So you do that. You put the queen here, the king has to respond. And so what you do, and this is a scenario that I've been in so many times and missed it many times. You take with your knight, and then your opponent has to take with a pawn, or doesn't have to, but certainly that's an option. And then you take that rook, and you have advance your piece. The reason that they might do that is if you go here and then this knight is here. If they don't take with your if they don't take your knight, then you have a situation of perpetual check. The king would be in check, and he would have to move here, and then you could move your queen there, and it would be checkmate, etc. So instead, you take here, and he takes there, and then if you took here, that would be a mistake. You want to take the rook and be done with it. So I started studying karate, and I wanted to advance to black belt. It was something I wanted to do, even though I'm kind of old. Who cares? And so I got my black belt in, I believe it was 2022. So I got it fairly recently. And it took me 3.5 years of study to get it. And when I finally got the black belt, I realized that all the moves that I learned going up through the ranks, starting at white belt and yellow and green and so on, those are just the same moves I use as a black belt. It's just I use them with more precision. And I could use all those moves. And I had in mind what to do first and second and third, like when sparring or breaking a board or going through a particular scenario, etc. And that's the way it is with chess. As you move, advance in your chess play, you're using the same patterns, using the same wisdom. You're just using it more often, and you're more ready to do the things you need to do to win. So hopefully that's helpful as you think about moving and advancing and looking at different scenarios and looking at different things that come up with in your games, and what can you do to win in that situation. So here are 2 checkmate traps that you can do, and these are good traps that can win against beginners and intermediates alike. So the first thing that you do is you go your queen's pawn up to d4, very normal move, queen's pawn opening, and they move the Dutch defense where they move their pawn up to f5, and then you counter by moving an obscure move. You put your pawn up, and they think maybe you're going to take this pawn or something, or get up on here and open up this row, and so they move their knight, which might have been the move they were going to make anyway, but it makes it impossible for you to have some fun at that particular point right there. But you ignore that and you move your pawn up because you're going to go ahead and have some fun there anyway. It just doesn't look like it's going to be anything important. So they take, and you take back, and then they take with their knight. So then the next thing you do is you move your queen up, and you are threatening this pawn with 2 pieces. So you could take the pawn, and you could trade the rook, and you would be causing trouble for your opponent at that time. So instead, the knight goes to protect that piece so that you can't do any more, and you ignore it. You go ahead and take with your rook. It's like, well, what were you thinking? And so whether they take with the rook or whether they take with the knight, you immediately move here, and it is checkmate. And this is a great checkmate trap. And for this checkmate trap, we'll start in a very similar manner as the previous one and see where we can go from there. So we have the king's pawn up, king's pawn answers. We get our knights out, get ready to play chess together. Roy Lopez opening for white, and you as black, you think, well, what are you going to do next? And so the knight comes down to do the fried liver attack, and so you're going to say, what am I going to do? So in this case, you go ahead and advance your pawn, which is a great move. But in this case, we're going to pull something just a little different. So the pawn takes, and so you decide that instead of doing something else that you could do, like take with this knight or whatever, you go ahead and move this knight up, which looks completely crazy to your opponent. They think, wow, I'm playing with a real rookie now, but they're not. They're playing with someone brainy like you that's going to put them in a checkmate trap. So they'll want to be able to still get back where they can do the fried liver attack, and so they move this pawn down, and then you just go ahead and take with your queen, but that lets them fork your queen and your rook anyway. So they decide to go ahead and do that. Why not? Because now they're threatening your queen and your rook. It's like, well, it's a no-brainer. But then you move your queen over. All of a sudden, the sad reality comes in for them, because the queen is attacking this pawn. It's attacking the bishop. And if the bishop has to go somewhere, then the king can take this knight. So they really can't deal with all of that very easily. They have to decide what to do. And so they're probably just going to take the rook. At least they can sacrifice that and trade the rook in case you take the bishop or something else. But it's totally losing for them at this point. You go ahead and take the pawn and threaten to take the rook. The rook moves to be by the king. It's wonderful because the king can protect the rook. But then you move your queen down, and you're putting the king in check again. And so your knight is protecting that square. They can't protect it with the queen. It would just be automatic checkmate. So instead, they put the bishop down. So white has done a fantastic job of playing a defensive game. And yet, even though the king is surrounded by all of his defenders, you move your knight here and put the king in check, and it is a smothered check. The reason this can't move because it's held in place by the queen. Nothing can take that knight. It is indeed checkmate, which is a fantastic thing for you. So that is the second checkmate trap. So obviously, if you're at this point, you've watched the entire video. If you found value and something that will help you improve your chess game, hey, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. It helps the channel. It helps create more wonderful videos like this. Thank you so much. Have a fantastic day.